Okay, welcome to Talking Prisoner to episode 9. Today is a really special episode as it's one of our first tribute episodes. It's in memory of those who are no longer with us. This one's dedicated to the amazing Betty Bobbitt. Betty played Judy Bryant on Prisoner and was in 429 episodes. Not only was she in Prisoner though, she starred in Cop Shop, A Country Practice, The Flying Doctors, All Saints, Blue Heelers, Crocodile Dundee, and she is adored by so many fans across the globe. And today we are speaking with Betty's son, Chris Hill, who is kind enough to come onto our show and talk about his mum. Welcome to Talking Prisoner.
Thank you very much, Matt and Ken. Fantastic to be here. Thanks for having me.
Sorry, go.
No, you go. You finish off what you need to say, Matt.
Okay, so firstly, can we just get to know a little bit about you and what industry you work in, and just about you.
Yeah, sure. So look, my industry, I've been in entertainment actually for the last 15 years. My ex-wife and I started a children's theatre business called the Kazoos, and we started it on a whim back in 2005. And it just grew and grew, and we ended up doing, by the end, we were doing 100 shows a year. So we built it to a point where we were the most successful independent children's theatre act, and a big part of that is because of Mum. We were just kind of winging it in the beginning, and she came in and she said, "Now listen, darling, you've got to script it." And we're like, "What? Script it? What?" And so she helped script, and she was the original director of the show. And because of her name and her expertise, we got a little kickstart, and we got a producer took us on and sent us on a tour in 2008 around the performing arts centres around Australia, and it just grew and grew from there. And over the years, she had less to do with it, but she was always a theatrical advisor for us. So she stopped actually directing each show that we came up with, but she was the theatrical advisor. And without her, in my life and growing up in the theatre and in TV, it would never have happened. Like, probably wouldn't have even thought of it. You know, like it was so much of Mum in there, so much of Mum in there, the slapstick, the comedy, and just pulling things from the dining room table, and putting it into the show. So yeah, so that we were doing that. And I started, stop me if I go on too much, because I can. But we were doing the shows, and it was going really well. We had our two beautiful kids who were on the road with us at the time. It was incredible. Like, we had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old on the road in the van with the stage manager and the tour manager, and we'd have to get out of the theatre and get into the van, get packed out of the theatre and get into the van by 1 p.m. or Roland wouldn't fall asleep and he'd get overtired, and then the rest of the day it'd be hell, So it was like this intense rush to get bumped out of the theatre. So theatre's been a big part of our lives for 15 years. When and then I also was doing trivia hosting, which I just kind of stumbled into. I thought, oh yeah, I'll do that, and because you've got to be a bit of a slashy, I think, when you're an artistic person. A slashy, if you don't know what a slashy is like, I was a performer / web designer / trivia host / barman / whatever, so slashies. I love that term. And so I was hosting trivia. It was going really well. And then the pandemic hit and everything stopped, and it was terrifying. And we just moved into this big house in Mount Waverley, and the rent's huge, and it was just a terrifying time, and I had to reinvent myself. I'm still answering your first question, Matt, so this is what it's going to be like. So the pandemic hit, and I had to reinvent myself. So I've got this background in web design. I used to be a web designer for public health, and I worked for Grey Advertising briefly, and animation companies, and back in the 90s, in the early cowboy days. So I thought, yep, stuff it. And I just went out on a limb and started my web design business again, Chrishill Studios. And it's gone really well, and it's sustained me throughout the entire pandemic. And I'm happy as a pig in shit. I don't know I'm allowed to swear on it. Happy as a pig and shit, you know. So chrishillstudios.com.au, web design and animation. And I'm also working.
I did look at your work the other night, and I was very impressed with the web design. It was, but not only do web design, you're doing search engine optimization and.
Yeah, the whole thing. So a full web service for people. Plus, I also do through the agency animation, and I've got an exciting project that I'm working on at the moment with a studio in LA and Mexico, and it's for a high profile person, which I'm not allowed to tell you about, but it's pretty exciting. So that's what I'm doing. Yeah.
So can you tell us what your first memories were of your mother?
Yeah, I've got a really wonderful, clear first memory of mum, although it's kind of dreamlike because I was very young. I must have been at the oldest 3, you know, so like a very young, early memory. And back in those days in Melbourne, in Toorak Road, just near the corner of Toorak Road and Chapel Street, there was the old HSV 7, the Channel 7 theatre. And it was a movie theatre. I remember mum taking me to see Batman, the movie there. I was a Batman fanatic, weren't we all? Adam West, you know, back in the day. But, you know, don't forget everyone out there that I'm 57 and, you know, so we're talking back in, you know, the 60s. And so this Toorak Road was kind of the hub of, you know, cafes and whatever was in Melbourne at the time, I think, you know, that and Lygon Street in the city. Anyway, the old studios there, and across the road from the HSV 7 theatre, there was a vacant lot. And my first memory is of being in that vacant lot on a warm summer's day, and it was covered in grasses and these beautiful bluey purple flowers. And I remember just going idyllically and peacefully through that field with mum in this vacant lot, picking flowers and just talking and picking flowers. And that's my earliest memory of time with mum.
Okay.
Nice. I read in your mum's book that when you certain dinners that you had on at your house, if you're having Chinese one night or Vietnamese or a certain cuisine, you would actually dress up in the outfits for that country.
Yeah, makeup and everything.
I was makeup as well.
Yeah. And you probably couldn't do it these days. It'd be not PC, but accents as well, which I'm not going to do now or I'll get slammed on social media. But yeah, we always loved a good accent, you know. So we'd go the whole hog. It was hilarious, you know, but it just seemed normal at the time. Like, it's just what you did. I couldn't believe that other people wouldn't dress up in fact, recently, I think my last birthday, mum was like, because she'd bring up for birthdays, she's such a good cook. She was such a good cook. And she'd say, you know, what do you want for dinner on your birthday? And I'd always try and like throw something, a curveball. And I'd go, I don't, you know, 17th century Argentinian, please. And she'd do it. She'd research it. She loved researching. She was a really loved research and facts and history, all that stuff. And so she'd go right into it and find out what they were eating in 1700s in Argentina, and yeah, go for it. So yes, I've forgotten what the question was now.
I thought the dinner dress ups.
Oh, the dinner dress ups. Yeah. So like we did, you know, Chinese, and obviously we'd dress up in Chinese and, you know, Italian, and we'd have little mustaches on. French, the beret and the stripy t-shirts, just cliche stuff that would be seen, I guess, as un-PC these days. But, you know, I mean,
I don't know. It may create a new trend.
It could. We should do it. We should do it now. Come
on. There's apparently an awkward conversation took place with your younger brother, talking about a scene that happened with Betty and the Jock Stewart, a rape scene or a potential rape scene, and your brother thought it was real. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, look, I don't actually remember the incident of the conversation between my brother and mum and him thinking that it was real. I don't remember that, but I do remember mum being very concerned about us both thinking that things in cinema, film, television, and theatre were real. And so I remember specifically she was in Terry Gill's pantomimes a lot, the children's pantomimes in shopping centres in Melbourne. Terry Gill, he's a theatre legend, and he was Santa for every year at the My Music Bowl, until he couldn't do it anymore, and then he even did it anyway, and he was amazing. When Terry was, I'm digressing again, but when at Terry's funeral, it was an amazing funeral, Malvern Town Hall, and he had a roll of over his coffin there was a cow suit that he loved, because he's children's theatre, Terry Gill. Google him if you don't know Terry Gill, Google him, and inside his coffin apparently there was a big roll of gaffer tape, and that's just so theatre, it's just like so. Now I really have lost my mind. I've got no idea where that was going. I'm completely off topic. What did you ask? What was it?
About
the conversation. Yeah. So the conversation. Sorry. So Mum was really like she played. That's where the Terry Gill thing came in. The biggest one that I remember with that was her playing the Wicked Witch in pantomimes, and she had this big fake nose and green, and she was so scary you wouldn't be able to do it these days probably. And all those pantos were quite like lots of adult innuendo and things that you don't tend to do these days. Yeah. It was a wonderful era, but she was very concerned that we would get scared and think that she was like, that it really was the Wicked Witch, or think that in this case that, she really was, abused. And so she'd break it down, and she'd do things like she'd take the nose off. And by this stage I was a bit older, but Ollie was younger. And she'd just take the nose off, and she'd laugh without the makeup on. And she'd just basically give us those, I don't know, it's like scaffolding, here's a little bit of me as the witch without makeup. Now I've got makeup on, now I've got the nose on, and we'd see her transform. And so, yeah, she didn't really, she was never that comfortable with the violence on Prisoner, not so much as a thing, like, or anti the violence, it wasn't like that at all, but she wasn't comfortable doing it. She felt nervous about, like, that she might hit someone by accident and hurt them, because they wouldn't, they'd make the sound and do the slapping, but sometimes they would contact, and all of those really intense moments in Prisoner where, like rapes and, abuse and fighting and violence, she found it hard emotionally to do those things, because she's so not like that. She's so gentle, and so there's not a violent, mean bone in Mum's body, So yeah. So yeah, in relation to that actual scene and Ollie getting the talk from Mum about it, I don't remember. Sorry, but it would have happened.
She probably led him through that sort of thing, in the way you've just explained. So yeah, she would, and she would, like, whenever we were watching things, like anything that we'd be watching when we were little, she would explain, this is not, you realize this isn't real, this is acting like what Mum does, and so we had a clear understanding of that. Well, I was shattered when I realized that Peter Pan wasn't true.
What? He's not true.
I'm 37 at the time. That's it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. In your mum's book, she mentioned she had a chat with you about the challenges of fame. Do you remember that that conversation? Or
yeah, and I think what she's done in the book is kind of paraphrase and brought many conversations into one, because the challenges of fame for her were great, and it was difficult. I mean, in our house in Clifton Hill, there was it was a long house. She renovated it, and down the side was like a big window onto the street with lattice work, and you couldn't see in if you were standing in the street because of the lattice work, but it looked right into our dining room, living room area. And sometimes people would be like with their fingers like stuck looking in. You'd be eating dinner and the dog would start barking and you'd look over and there'd be people like with their fingers through the lattice looking in. You know, she's a very private person and didn't like the fame. She just didn't like it, you know, very private and humble, you know, so she felt like it was silly, you know, a bit silly. And if I use the wrong words for her, I apologize, Mum, you know, but, you know, that's the feeling I got. It was just like, why are we actors up on this kind of pedestal? And, you know, everyone, like, I'm just doing my job, you know, I'm just doing a job that I love, you know. So she found it difficult, and people can be really, really, really harsh. You know, one time we were shopping, this is at the height of Prisoner, and I was a teenager, and we went into an elevator in the shopping centre, and these two women got in at the same time with us, and you could see them kind of going,
wow.
One of them nudged the other one and went, and she went, and they were looking at her hair, and they whispered again, and then one of them reached up and touched Mum's hair and sort of felt it like that, you know. And then she turned to her friend, she said, "It is real. It really is real." And we didn't know what to say. We were just standing there, like, and it was devastating for Mum, you know, like, but it was just such an encroachment into the humanity of a person, you know. She was a commodity in that way to people, you know, and that she found that really hard. But because she couldn't go to the supermarket without being recognised,
yeah,
you know, and it was she didn't like it. She liked it when people were nice, though. You know, she liked it if people just came up and said, "Excuse me, I don't want to bother you, but I just love your work. You know, I love your acting," you know, something like that. So if you see a Prisoner star or a star that you loved, if you're watching this and you're out there, don't talk to them like they're not people. They're doing a job and they're passionate. If you're an actor, you're passionate about your work, yeah? And you love what you do, and you're probably insecure about it too, even if you're Brad Pitt. You know what I mean? So like, people often see a star or somebody they look up to and they think, "Oh, I couldn't ever go up and say, 'Oh, I love you,' like, great job," or whatever. Might be a sports star even, you know, but they're just wanting genuine recognition as well, you know. So feeling insecure is you know, or is Val Lehman doing a better job? Do people love her more? Or, you know, not that she ever said that, but you know what I mean? Like, people compare. So yeah, she found it very, 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 very difficult, but also loved her fans.
Was it always Prisoner they would talk to her about, or they talked to her about other things that she did, like Crocodile?
That's a good question, Matt. That's a really good question, because she got sick of the one thing, right? And that was the big thing that she was known for. But when someone came up to her and said, "Oh, Betty Bobbitt, I remember you from Daily at Night," or "I remember you from your days at Channel 7. And, you know, like, I remember you on Celebrity Squares with Ernie Sigley," and she would love that. You know, she'd get really chuffed because her career was so much more, or even more so. "Oh, Betty, I saw you in a play in the Melbourne Theatre Company, and it made me cry," you know, that sort of thing. Because her career has been more than Prisoner, as you guys are well aware, and you've been, you know, wonderful to talk about the history. But there's the theatre as well, and the music theatre, and you know, you could go on and on and on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope I answered that question okay.
Yeah, no, I was just curious about that.
Yeah, not a big fan of the fame. She didn't not handle it. She handled it very well, considering how uncomfortable it made her in certain ways. But she was very appreciative of her fans. She loved her fans. Yeah. So yeah.
In the studios, having worked all of Prisoner as a cameraman, your mum used to talk about you and Oliver. Can you tell us a little bit about him?
Oh, Ollie's just the wonderful younger brother. He's 9 years younger than me, and he's incredibly talented and gifted in all sorts of ways. Whatever he puts his mind to, he's very single-minded. I remember when we were little, you know, and when he was little, because he's 9 years younger than me, and he'd stack his crayons and pens in coloured order, and he was very meticulous and, you know, very. There's a serious side to him, but also a silly side to Ollie, and love him dearly. And he's, you know, well, it's got a bit of a hard time for him at the moment because his wife has been diagnosed with cancer.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So, and they've got a little 1-year-old daughter, and that happened in January after mum passing away in November. So yeah, look, we're doing a fundraiser, like a crowdfunding to try and help them, because he runs his own business. He's got an aquarium, and he's so talented with his marine corals. It's incredible. You know, he's one of the foremost sort of experts in marine coral in Australia. Yeah, so running a business and having, you know, small children and going through that.
Can you send me a link to the crowdfunding, and we'll put that up on the.
I'll send you a link to the crowdfunding. I think it's still going, okay. And it's terminal cancer too. I don't know how much of this you want to put on it, but on the show. But she was given 9 months, like four months ago or so. So yeah, it's harsh. Poor Ollie. So he's
Sorry.
Yeah, I know.
Tragic cancer.
I know, horrible thing.
Yeah. So getting back to your mum, what was she like as a mum? Betty the mum, not the actress, just
yeah. Look, mum was one of those really loving, hands-on, caring, incredible mums. I mean, I suppose we all say this, or maybe not all of us, but, you know, best mum in the world sort of thing, you know. I mean, to give you an idea what sort of mum was, I mean, back when we were living in Sydney when I was about 4, and she came up with this idea, Slave Day. Now, this really shows what sort of mum she was. She decided it would be a great idea if once a year, just on a random day when she decided, she wouldn't tell me before, she'd wake me up in the morning and go, "It's Slave Day," and she'd say it like that. And what that meant was that for the entire day, from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed, she was my slave, and she had to do everything that I said.
Oh, mackerel.
Yeah, mental. What sort of mum does that? Well, a mum that's enthusiastic, a mum that's loving, a mum that's like passionate, a mum that wants to empower her children, a mum that, you know, has you know, great sense of humor and selflessness, you know. So the first year was great, and we just, I don't know, we played toy cars and, you know, went to the shops and blah, 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 blah. Second year, I was a little bit more sort of demanding, but the third year I was like, right, you know, by this time I'd tweaked, and it was so horrible for her. She said, no more slave days. No, and that was it. So I think we did 3. I think we did 3. We ended up at the zoo, you know. It was just, yeah. She was an incredible mum, very caring, very loving, very hands-on. Lots of cuddles, you know, lots of, you know, lots of I love you, lots of words, lots of actions of, you know, love as well. So she was just, you couldn't hope for a better mum. Yeah. All that soft side of Judy, you know, all that people love so much, all that sort of soft, tender, compassionate Judy, you know, that part of her, that's the part of Judy that's really like mum in a lot of ways. But I would say mum was even more than that, you know. So yeah. Wow. Great mum. Yeah. And very supportive. She was very supportive of, she was never like, you must do this, you know, as a career or whatever. She's like, as long as you're happy, I want you to find what you want to do, what you boys want to do. And as long as you're fulfilled and happy and you're not hurting anyone or hurting yourself, then I'm behind you boys, you know. And so, yeah, she was great like that. She was very protective. I'd say overly protective. I didn't get a push bike until I was 10. So she worried a lot. She was a bit of a worrier about physical things. Yeah, because she wasn't that physical. And, you know, so yeah, no bike until I was 10. Yeah, so she'd worry about me falling off cliffs or whatever it might be, you know. So, yeah. But apart from that, perfect. And that's probably kept me out of trouble as well.
So you've basically almost answered my next question, which was the difference between Betty and Judy. Well, obviously there were differences, but also she was, as you said, similar to Judy in the softer moments.
Yeah, she brought that soft character of her own to Judy. But there wasn't a violent bone in Mum's body. Like, you know, there wasn't a mean bone in her body, but she was just not a mean person. I mean, Judy wasn't mean anyway, but like, yeah, that tougher side of Judy, just that was completely not present in Mum. Yeah.
What did your mum think of her popularity of her, of her even up to, until she passed away on Prisoner, all the events and everything and she was invited to and the fans?
Yeah. Look, it was a twofold thing for her. She loves the fans. Yeah. She always just was so appreciative of the fans. She found it difficult, things like, signing things at events and getting paid for signing something. She found that kind of ridiculous and she didn't like it. She found that whole side of it. I don't know. She couldn't quite reconcile, like, that side of being a star, that people were happy to, give her $10 or whatever it was for a signature on her photo, and have a chat. She found that difficult, but like, yeah, she loved her fans. The whole fame thing. Sorry, what was the exact question again?
I mean, just what she thought of her popularity even up until like now.
Yeah, the popularity. Yeah. So, I mean, look, as far as the popularity, she was very happy to have that popularity because, popularity is a recognition and an acknowledgement of a job well done, as an actor. So the popularity is like, if you're an actor and no one knows who you are, well, you're not doing, you're feeling bad about it, so she loved it. She loved the popularity.
Yeah. And from what you're saying, she was in fact recognised quite a lot in public.
Oh, every time she went out. Every single time.
Which must have been difficult to handle.
Yeah. In a word, yeah.
Yeah.
It's difficult, it's difficult. And, there's this thing too that we noticed watching, Mum and in social interactions, and everybody was nice to her, like everybody was like really nice to her. And so that, I mean, comes from being a really nice person and everyone like genuinely liked her, but you could see that there was this thing of like people kind of being a little bit different than they would to just somebody who wasn't famous or wasn't in their sort of star sort of realm, and so that can be a bit tricky for people in entertainment because you're never quite sure if someone's being nice to you because they like you or because you're famous.
Yeah. They're being too nice.
Yeah, they're being too nice, so, but yeah, I think, I mean, everyone was nice to Mum once they got to know her, really, because she was just lovely. She's nice. Yeah, so.
Was it, as a kid, was it strange to have a mum that was famous, when you were younger?
Yeah, the classic question, and it wasn't strange because it was all that we knew, and I think especially for Ollie, because he was younger when she became that level of fame. For me, it was more of a like, oh wow, good on you, Mum, sort of thing. Yeah, it wasn't strange, but it was normal. I mean, and it was, people would like, I mean, even at school, I was at Huntingdale Tech for a little while, just for a term before I dropped out. And I used to, because Prisoner was in its like heyday, and she was like huge in it, and she was in the storylines a lot at the time. And people were coming up to me and saying, hey, Chris, what's happening? Because it was shot 6 weeks in advance. What's happening next week? What's the storyline? What's the storyline? And I go, no. And I do that for a while. And then I go, oh, give me a couple of cigarettes and I'll tell you. So I used to swap prisoner secrets, never for money, but for cigarettes. And, you know, like, oh, it was just like, I don't smoke anymore, by the way. If you smoke, quit. Yeah, that was pretty good. Yeah, so funny.
What a classic storyline, giving cigarettes away for storylines. That's
Yeah. So
Did you
yeah,
ever make any up?
sorry.
Did you ever make any up?
I don't remember making any up, actually. In fact, this is like a confession. I struggled to remember. Sometimes I have to go home and say, Mum, like, what's going on? Because being a teenager, it's what your mum's doing. I didn't watch Prisoner. Like, I would sometimes, but like, that was the last thing I wanted to do because it was, you know, your mum, you know. And I kind of regret that now looking back, but it's not too late. I can always go back and watch all of the episodes, but I haven't, you know, you guys would have seen Mum in Prisoner way more than me.
So did you front Betty and say, look, I'm getting a bit short on cigarettes. Can you tell me what's coming up in the program?
Yeah, I wouldn't actually mention the cigarettes. But, you know, it'd be more like, you know, so at the dinner table, probably in some, you know, accent with a strange hat on. So what have you been working on today, Mum? You know, but, you know, where a lot of the storylines that I knew about came from this, which just drove me crazy. She'd come home and, you know, they work so hard. You know, anyone in, like, nowadays in Neighbours, in any soap opera, any TV show, any actor works just so insanely hard, you know, all day, just intense, you know, and you're switched on and it's just like, and the pressure, you know, the pressure is huge. But she'd come home, she'd be tired, she'd crack open a bottle of wine and she'd say, right, honey, darling, I want you to help me with my lines, because she'd have to memorize her lines for the next day. And I'd just be like, oh no, Mum, I don't want to. And I hated it. I was like, you know, teenagers hate everything. So I was just like, oh, Mum, like, no. And there I'd be like being Bea Smith, you know, reading lines, you know, oh yeah, bitch, you know, and we'd go over and over. So that's where I got most of my storyline bribes from.
Don't crack any jokes when I'm about to take a mouthful of water, Chris. That lot nearly came out through the nose.
Through the nose.
The book From the Outside, written by your mum.
Yep.
You had something to do with that, didn't you? Can you tell us how the book came about and you know, what your connection?
You know, that side of Mum that was kind of the humble side, the not wanting to be like, you know, oh, look at me side, really held her back from writing the book. And it was actually the kid's mum, Celia, my ex, who at the time, she was like, Mum mentioned the idea of perhaps writing a book about her time in Prisoner. And then she just kind of didn't mention it again. And Celia was like, she really needs to do this, you know, and Celia's quite a entrepreneurial, go-get-'em kind of person, you know. And so she, you know, through discussion with me, we decided that we were going to have a go at getting Mum to do it and just encourage her. And it was a bit of a slog to get her to actually do it. But then eventually she said, yeah, all right. And she sat down and she wrote it. And, you know, I expect, you know, Mig would have been Mum's partner. She would have been encouraging her as well, of course. But from my memory of it, it was really Celia who ignited the fire to write the book. And then what we did with my talents and, you know, skills as a designer, I actually laid the book out and, you know, did all the typography and the cover and all of that. And we self-published it with a publishing house in South Australia. So we actually entirely, we did the whole thing in-house. And this was before really, because nowadays it's fairly common, but back then it was really only just a new kind of thing, wasn't as common. So yeah, we did it and it worked. Yay. You know.
It's a great book. I mean, I got it when it first came out, but I reread it just recently.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's an amazing book.
it's got so much, you know, like, oh, and she tried to get it picked up by publishers, and yeah, couldn't get it. Like, I don't know why. It's just, you know, whatever. We'd done a cookbook too before that. Hang on, stay there. We did this little puppy. Can you see that?
Teen Cuisine.
Teen Cuisine, and it's a there's me, and I don't know if you can see that, me and Mum, me looking very sort of,
you without the beard.
Yeah, without the beard. That was a long time ago. This was 1993 or whatever, something like that.
Wow.
And the whole thing, it's a cookbook for teenagers, and it's done in cartoon form. See that?
Aha.
Yeah.
Clever.
Geez, that would have been successful.
Well, it wasn't.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was picked up by a publishing house, and they like got it into the shops. But the problem was that I think it was marketed incorrectly. It's called Teen Cuisine, and really it's aimed, the content is aimed at preteens for a start, and it's black and white, and it's too small. So I think if it had been a bigger book in color and called something else apart from Teen Cuisine, like targeted more at the youth, it would have done all right. I mean, it sold, but it wasn't as big a seller as we thought. There's probably 1,000 of them sitting around somewhere in Flemington, you know, right now. Yeah. So we'd had a foray into publishing before, but that wasn't self-published at all. Teen Cuisine. Wow. So the book was, it was kind of like prying it out of her at first, but once she decides on something, away she went, and she wrote it fairly quickly, you know, because she loves writing. Writing's one of her passions, and that was another reason we wanted to get her like going on it, because, you know, she'd stopped acting. She was doing some stuff, but we wanted her to be, you know, passionate about something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your mum arrived in Australia in 1962, which I hope I've got the right date, and found work as a comic on a TV panel show, which Ken knows about. Can you tell us about that, Ken?
Yes, I can. And I'll try and keep it short. At the beginning of the 1960s, an American singing comedy duo appeared on Graham Kennedy's In Melbourne Tonight on Channel 9. John Daly and Ken Delo. They were so popular that when Graham's director, Norman Spencer, left 9 and went to 7, he kept in contact with them after the boys returned to the US. John Daly came back to Australia at Norm's request, and not long after, the Fitzroy Teletheatre opened and appeared on a program titled Daly at Night. It was hosted by John and had a panel of guests, including Kitty Blewett, Julian Glover, Frank Thring, and others. Among them was a young woman who styled herself as Betty Bobbitt from Big Bear. She was zany, witty, and quite beautiful. And later, when Ken Delo arrived here, Norman Spencer devised a new program, the Delo and Daly Show, which I worked on both of them. And so did Betty in her role of slightly dumbish brunette.
Yeah, that's I love that blurb. And what a time it would have been. Live television, you know. For everyone out there, there's no footage. Don't go looking on YouTube, because you're not going to find it. There's no footage of Daly at Night or Delo and Daly at all, because it was live television. It was literally early days of TV and completely live. They just recorded over the tape. You know, it was just the way they did it back then. Mum even went.
There are a few photographs. That's all you can find. It's just a few photographs.
A few photos. That's it. I've got a photo of Mum from a show called the Magic Circle Club, which is around about the same time, with John Finlayson, wonderful actor and dear friend for, you know, a lifetime friend. And Finno, we call him John Finlayson. He and Mum were on that show. She played a witch and a fairy and a fairy sort of thing, with a big bear. And anyway, I've got one photo of that, but all of the other live stuff, nothing.
Shame.
Yeah, but a wonderful. Sorry,
it's a shame.
Fred Bear.
Fred Bear. Yeah, Fred Bear. And she used to come out and clean this toadstool. Or Fred used to come out and clean the toadstool. Anyway, I remember the show, but it's such a dim memory because I was so little. It was a children's show. Yeah, Magic Circle Club. And yeah, none of that stuff is available. There are a few photos.
Yeah.
But a wonderful story of how she got here, you know. And I'm happy to tell it if you want to hear it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So Mum was in a young woman in LA, and she was in a play over there. I can't remember what it was. I think it's on Wikipedia, actually, the name of the play. I should know, being an expert, you know. But yeah, she was in this play, and she was funny, of course, because she's funny. You know, she's got the best comic timing. I mean, her comic timing's just like out of this world. Jonathan Daly was in the audience, and he saw her and said, "Hey, you're funny. Would you like to come back to Australia and be on my television show? Maybe for, 6 weeks?" And she was like, "Austria? What's that?" And so she didn't know where Australia was or what Australia was. And she said, "Yes, all right, I'll do it." And huge fear of flying, Mum. Huge fear of flying. So she caught the boat over. I think in those days too, a lot of people went by boat anyway.
They did.
Rather than flying. So she caught the boat over. This young, naive, because she'd grown up on the East Coast. She moved to LA to become an actor. She didn't really know what she wanted to do. She said until she was about 40, but she was acting then, and she's always loved her acting. And apparently she lived in, oh no, I digress. We'll cut that bit. But yeah, she came over on the boat, arrived in Sydney, and then Jonathan Daly flew her down from Sydney to Melbourne. Her getting on a plane, it's like, no. But she got on the plane and flew down to Sydney. They went straight to Jonathan Daly's house where she spent the night, and they had dinner. And so there she is, fresh off the boat, fresh off the plane. What was she, 20-year-old, whatever she was, just young, naive, and they're having dinner. And Jonathan and his wife, they're like, "So great to have you here. We're the first live show's tomorrow. We're going to film it tomorrow. So what are you going to do? What's your shtick?" And she was like, "What do you mean? What am I going to do? Like, it's your show. Aren't you going to tell me what to do? Aren't you going to give me a script? Like, what do you mean? What am I going to do? What's my shtick?" And they went, "No, well, what's your shtick? You're funny. We brought you over here to be funny. Like, what's your shtick? What are you going to do?" And she internally panicked. It's like, what do I do? What live television tomorrow? What am I going to do? What are they talking about? She said, wait here a minute. And she ran into her bedroom. Apparently she went into her bedroom. She's like, "Oh, what do I do? What do I do?" She frantically opens up her suitcase, looks inside, and there's a harmonica that her brother had given her. She knew how to play 2 things on the harmonica. The last post, da, 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 and the Banjo on My Knee song. What's Oh, Susanna, on the harmonica. So she had a checked shirt. She put it on. She tied it up there, to show her midriff. She blacked out her tooth with an eyeliner, did some big freckles, put her hair in ponytails, and just came out not knowing what she was going to do, and just went, "Hi, I'm Betty Bobbitt from Big Bear." And she started playing harmonica really badly and slapping her knee out of time. Jonathan and his wife roared with laughter, and Betty Bobbitt from Big Bear was born. What? Like that. That's how it happened. And so she went on the show, and she was an instant success. Like the very next week, apparently, she was on the front page of the Herald. Wow. Like she was an instant hit, and people couldn't work out if she was real or not, or if she was acting. There was a reporter and it was all over the press. Is Betty Bobbitt from Big Bear, is she real or is she faking it? And she maintained that she was real the whole time through this. And there was one tenacious reporter, I don't remember the reporter's name because I never knew it, which is a good reason that I don't remember it. And he was determined to unearth the truth of Betty Bobbitt from Big Bear. And so he actually rang Mum's hometown mayor, all right, and in Norristown in Pennsylvania. And the mayor, right, because the reporter had said to him, said to Mum, well, I've looked it up on the maps, and there's no Big Bear town, in Pennsylvania. It's not there. And she's like, oh yeah, that town was kind of amalgamated into a bigger town, into the bigger area of Norristown, and blah 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 blah. She said, he's like, I don't believe you. She said, ring the mayor, ask him, just off cuff. And so the reporter actually rang the mayor, but Mum's was famous in her hometown because she was this small town girl that had gone overseas and was famous on television. So everyone was kind of following her back there as best they could back then, pre-internet. And the mayor got wind of it. And when the reporter rang, he backed up her story. Oh. Boom, get you, reporter. So the myth was, propagated, or whatever the word is, you know what I mean? So yeah, great little story there.
She actually stayed in character when we were doing that show. She would stay in character. So she would always be that slightly zany, dumb brunette, yeah. even when we weren't live to air, which it was live to air. She stayed in character.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me, actually. I didn't know that, and that doesn't surprise me at all, because Mum's a really good actor. She didn't work Melbourne Theatre Company for 5 years as one of the principals for no reason. She's a really good actor, and she knows a lot about the history of acting and the different methods, the Stanislavski method, all the different types of acting. And she's taught acting to the teachers at VCA in Melbourne. She's really accomplished and takes it very, very seriously. So to take something so dim-witted and seriously, I mean, it's like, any of these great comic actors around the world, they take their art very, very seriously. And so it doesn't surprise me at all that she'd stay in character. In fact, she'd stay in character of Judy. She'd come home and she'd go, what, haven't done your room? She didn't. She didn't. You bitch! And lucky we didn't have any stairs, because I would have had a few broken bones. Anyway.
Getting on to your mum's acting, she mentioned that she hated auditions. It's hard to imagine your mum auditioning for anything. You've been such an accomplished actor, but
yeah.
Why did she like auditions?
Yeah, well, because they're horrible. They're horrible.
Story.
Yeah, it's just the scariest thing. Your heart races. She when she was teaching, she developed a course specifically on how to audition, how to prepare for auditioning. So for someone who hated auditions, this is actually, as it sort of shows what sort of person she is. She hated auditions. So what does she do? She works out how to nail them and how to get them good. And then she teaches what she's worked out to other people, and that's Mum, Yep. She was, tenacious like that. So yeah, auditions are horrible. And she got some shows, quite a lot of stuff, without having to audition, just offered the parts. But she would have to go to auditions just like any other actor.
She actually did audition for the role of Bea Smith.
Yeah.
Would she have preferred the role of Bea over Judy?
I don't think so. But she would have brought a different thing to Bea, wouldn't she? So I think she would have been happy with anything, as any actor kind of is. But she loved Judy, and she was happy to be, playing that character. So yeah, it's one of those questions. Like, if it had happened, I think she would have just loved being Bea, But I think she was more suited to Judy.
Yeah.
And that's why the character took hold, and her little stint turned into 5 years, because...
Yeah, which was the next question I had for you, because her contract was originally for 13 weeks.
Yeah.
And Ian Bradley, who we spoke to in episode 4 of Talking Prisoner, he called her into the office. his office and said, you know, we want to extend your contract. Was that due to her popularity on the show in those 13 weeks? Do you remember?
Yeah, because originally it was written that, what was her girlfriend's name? Because remember, she committed the crimes to get into.
Oh, Sharon. Was it Sharon?
Sharon. Was it Sharon?
Yeah.
Yeah. So originally, Sharon was going to stay and Judy was going to be in the show for a little bit and then leave.
Okay.
Right. But the popularity of Judy, because they do polls and people would write in and all that sort of thing. And they get a feeling for it as well, the producers. They're like, you know, and so Sharon was gone and Judy stayed. So yeah, and she was over the moon.
Yeah.
We struggled, you know, like when we were young, especially when I was young, before Ollie came along and we were in Sydney, I can remember going for walks looking for bottles to take to the shop where you got the 5 cents back on them. You know, that's how poor we were. You know, we didn't, and I never knew, you know, except that we were collecting bottles, but that was just a fun thing for me, you know. So it was always in the early days a struggle. And then Mum would get a gig and it'd be great, and then we wouldn't have, she wouldn't have a gig for a while. And you know, as with many, the majority of actors in the world, and especially in Australia, it's a hard slog, you know. So she was over the moon, you know, and it enabled her to live a lifestyle that made her feel like it was all worth it, you know.
Yeah, she was the second, actually Ken mentioned before we come on, she was the second longest running actress on Prisoner to Elspeth Ballantyne. Was that right, Ken?
Yeah,
yes.
I think, yeah, Elspeth, yeah.
Yeah.
How's that, eh?
Yeah, from a 13-week contract to 400 plus episodes.
Yeah, but she brought such a dimensional thing to the character. You know, she really brought that dimension, and I think that's what people loved about Judy, was that she had that sort of tough side, and you know, this kind of like she threw herself into prison for love. You know, like who would do that? Someone passionate about love and your partner. You know, and yet she had this gentle, compassionate side, and she was like the caring one, and yet she became top dog for a little while.
Yeah.
You know, not for long, but. You know, so she really brought this dimensionality to the character of Judy that I think really resonated. And also the fact that she was the first non-diesel dyke type, you know, pardon the phrase, but like, you know, lesbian character on Australian television, where she was just a person, you know, like not being stereotyped. And I think that really helped too, because it just grabbed on to so many people's hearts.
Yes.
You know, especially in the LGBT, you know, community.
Yeah.
So, and that continues to this day. You know, we still get wonderful messages from, you know, from people saying, you've really helped me to, you know, feel okay, to come out, to, you know, like just get a perspective, you know.
I mean, she had some major groundbreaking storylines on Prison. I mean, especially the one with the assisted suicide at the halfway house.
Yeah.
Now I mean, that's pretty full on back then. Yeah.
Totally. I mean, it was a groundbreaking show.
Yeah.
You know, funnily enough, you know, the new one, and this is not a comparison or anything on Wentworth, which is a wonderful show. But Mum couldn't watch it because it was a bit too violent for her, like physically violent, even though Prisoner was violent. And, you know, it was like, yeah, bitch, and they're swearing at each other and hitting each other, beating each other up. And there's all this stuff going on, like these incredible, intense storylines. Back then, it wasn't as graphic because it couldn't be. It probably would have been, you know, if it could have been, but it wasn't. And so that created this wonderfulness about the show as well. Pardon me. Yeah. Intense storylines. Yeah. What a great show.
But Betty actually had the sympathy and the empathy of the viewers.
Yeah.
She created that.
Yeah.
And to to be able to produce that softness in a tough situation and to get the fans on her side.
Yeah.
Just was a creation of her own.
Yeah, totally. And she deliberately worked on that. Can you hear the kids in the background?
No.
No, good. She deliberately worked on that softness and that character. As I said, she's a very serious actor, you know, so she really delved into who Judy was, what made her tick, what made her love, what made her hate, you know, what made her laugh, what made her cry, all that, and brought that. And that, as I said, came out in the character. And that's where people connect with Judy, you know,
Yes.
in that space. She was such a method actor in a way. I don't know if that's technically right, but you know, when she'd put on the overalls, she'd walk different. You know, she developed this way of walking. I remember when she first got in the show and she was like trying all these different ways of walking, and she'd say, what about this one? What about, I remember having to sit there and watch her walk back and forth in the living room. And it's like, no, that one's too tough, Mum. That no, you look like a monkey. Like, no, not that one, you know. But she eventually got this walk. And funnily enough, by the end of Prisoner, she'd do the walk sometimes when she wasn't in the overalls. You know, we were just down the shops or walking around in the house, and I go, "You're walking like Judy, Mum." She'd go, "Oh shit." Yeah, quite funny.
She was working pretty full on at the time of Prisoner, but before that, you and your brother knew what it was, how difficult it was, because you actually apparently had a babysitter. Was it hard for you young guys with your mum absent so often?
Look, what I'd say is no, not really, because she was absent, but then she was there. And when she was there, she was really there. Yeah. You know, slave day, say no more. But no, when she was there, she was really there. And we'd often go with her. You know, I remember going to Tiki and John's, the theatre, when I was like 4 years old, and sitting there while she was rehearsing, you know, probably because she couldn't afford a babysitter back then. You know, and they'd get me up on stage and get me singing little cute 4-year-old songs and, you know, yada, yada, all that sort of thing. But it wasn't, I don't remember it as being hard. And I think that's because of the resilience of children and the adaptability of children. Not to say that children can adapt and be resilient to anything and not be scarred for life, you know, but we weren't scarred by her working a lot. And in the Prisoner days, that's when it really ramped up. But I mean, look, a lot of the time, say for instance, before Prisoner with Melbourne Theatre Company, and she was 5 years in Melbourne Theatre Company, and so she had a show every night and 2 shows on Saturday and Sunday, you know, and so we'd either be in the theatre with her, or we'd have a sitter, you know, and we always had lovely sitters, and honestly, it was fine.
Yeah.
Wouldn't change a thing.
Fantastic. You had
Except for that time she threw me down the stairs and called me a bitch. But apart from that, joking.
Val Lehman and your mum had a lot of dinners during the Prisoner days together with her daughters and yourself and your brother. What were they like?
Oh, mate. I can't say very much. Because I love Val. She's just an absolute, like, you know, an important person in my life, and her daughters and son. So look, Cassie and Joe, because I was at school in America. I went to high school for my year 10 year, 1979-80, while Mum was in Prisoner. I went to school because my dad lives in America. And when I came back, it was like going gangbusters, you know, and I met Cassie and Joe, Val Lehman's daughters, and we just became this little gang, you know, and I'm still friends with them now. And, you know, and Jason was there as well, their brother. Well, he was a bit younger though. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm still friends with all of them now. And we'd have, that should, all of the dinner parties I mean, I can't even, I mean, we're talking about like Val Lehman's dinner parties, but like there was all the dinner parties. Like Mum had dinner parties, you know, Val had dinner parties, you know, and crazy stuff, you know. I remember one night I was in my bunk in Clifton Hill, and I was trying to go to sleep. I was a teenager, you know, and they're all out there having a, you know, basically having a piss on and a great time and eating all this amazing food. Mum was such an amazing cook, and so was Val, and you know, I'm sure she still is. And the door bursts open, and in they all come. I can't remember who it was now, but there was about 5 of them, and they'd burnt the ends of the champagne corks and drawn little noses and whiskers on their faces, and they were like, "Look, we're cats." They turned the light on and woke me up. I was like, "Okay, all right, back to bed now, Chris." Off you go, you know. So kind of crazy wild nights, you know, and nights of singing around the piano and jokes, and everyone kind of trying to one up each other in a friendly, you know, healthy way, with humor and stories, and because everyone's an actor, you know. So these dinner parties were insane. They were so good, and the food and the grog, and just like, it was just like, you know, just frivolous, wonderful, creative, and you know, worth memorializing. You know, if you could make a movie about the dinner parties, it'd be a good movie.
Amazing memories.
Yeah,
that's great.
Judy actually, the character Judy in Prisoner drove a taxi, but Betty never drove.
No, the first time they got her in the taxi, it had to be on the back, because they were like, "Okay, now you're going to drive a cab," and she was like, "I don't drive," and they didn't know. They're like, "What? You don't what? You don't drive?" So they had to put it on the back of a trailer and pull it along. She never learned how to drive.
Did she
or swim,
drive, swim,
or ride a bike? Driving, swimming, riding bikes, forget it.
Was that because she was scared of those type? You know, you talk about how she's an overprotective mum with you.
Yeah.
Was that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was because of, it was just too scary for her. She just didn't want to. Fair enough.
Which is quite common in a lot of people.
Yeah. I don't. It was never seen as a bad thing. It was just the way Mum was. I mean, she used to, like, because we lived in well, when we were in Clifton Hill, and also when we were in Abbotsford, and the studios out at Nunawading, which is now the Fremantle Media Studios, where Neighbours is filmed. She'd have to get out there every day and home. So the network paid for her cab charge. So she'd just jump in a cab and go to work every day and come home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know why your mum left Prisoner?
She just got over it.
Okay.
She wasn't like written out without her knowledge. She quit.
Yep.
And I think she just got sick of playing the same character. She found it hard to quit. She was finding the people coming up to her in the elevators and touching her hair and saying, "Oh, it is real," hard, you know. So, and she's a very private person. You know, everyone was like, "Is your mum really gay? You know, is she really a lesbian?" And I'm like, "It's a show. She's acting. That's, you know, like, you know, she didn't want people prying into her life. She and the same show for 5 years every day. I mean, like, I know people do it, but she just wanted to do something else. And she was starting to question whether she wanted to act anymore at all. So, yeah, which she did and she didn't. So she continued acting, but it's dwindled and dwindled.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she was acting right up until, you know, fairly recently, before she passed away. Yeah, went and saw her in a play at the Northcote Town Hall, which was wonderful. I can't remember the name of it, but it was an amazing play about disability in theatre and performing arts. And it was written by the troupe, all of the actors. They basically all got together and rehearsed it, and everybody in the play had some sort of disability. And they all wrote it together through improvisation over a series of, you know, over a year.
Yeah.
And it was a really intense, confronting play. It was really good. It really addressed a lot of stuff. Because Mum's she was in an electric wheelchair for the last few years. You know, her mobility really suffered, and that made it hard for her in the last parts of her life. So she was classed officially as being disabled. She could walk, she could get up and walk around the house, but she couldn't go for a walk up the shops. Or, you know, if she fell over, she couldn't get up. You know, so she had to have a thing around her, you know, mobile phone permanently around her if Mig wasn't home. But yeah, you know, happy as Larry.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, poor old mum, lots of pain in the end parts of her life. But I think, you know, physical pain. But yeah, back to the question, leaving Prisoner. It was just, I think she just felt her time was up, basically, and she wanted to move on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But of course, her time embraced the logies. And apparently you went along to at least one of the logies with Val and your mum.
Yeah, I went to one, I think it was 80, I can't remember which year it was, but it was a pretty good year. And so Val and Mum was, I think she was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, and Val won the Best Actor or something, I think, that year. She won something. I've got a picture of TV Week of Val getting the award.
Oh, wow.
On the night. And it's a classic because I'm in the background. I'll send it, I'll scan it to you and send it to you. Because I'm in the background in this tuxedo kind of going, oh, you know. So yeah, that was an amazing night. Britt Eklund was there. Ernest Borgnine. I've never been starstruck meeting anyone in my life, right? Ever. I've always just been, oh yeah, you're just an actor, you know, except for Ernest Borgnine. And I don't know if you know who Ernest Borgnine is, but he was just this insane American, you know, film actor from the 40s and 50s and 60s, 70s. And I was dumbfounded. I was like, it's Ernest Borgnine. You know? And Shirley Strawn, Britt Eklund, and Archie Whiteley was there. I know you want to ask me about that.
Well, apparently you had a crush on her and wanted to date her. Is that right?
Not quite.
She played, for the fans, she played, was Donna Mason on Prisoner from memory. Yeah.
And she'd just done a film called Razorback, which was an Australian sort of horror film, outback horror film about this wild boar that's like giant and it's just killing people. It's like, you know, this kind of like, you know, gore flick, you know, called Razorback. I don't know if you remember that one. Yes. And it was in the cinemas at the time. And she was the sort of, you know, the star of Razorback. And she was gorgeous. Anyway, so we met at the Logies and I thought, oh, she's cute, you know. And that was that. And the next day, Mum says to me, she's like, oh, Archie Whiteley's called me and she wants to go out on a date with you. Would you do that? And I was like, would I do that? Yeah, I'll do that. No worries. I was like, what? Like, because we'd hardly spoken at the Logies. We just kind of said hi, shook hands, you know, just kind of a moment there. And then that was that. And so we organized to go out on a date. And I was a bit excited, I got to tell you. And the day that we were meant to go on the date, something happened with her dad got unwell up in Sydney. And she had to fly up, and then it never happened after that, which is kind of, yeah, that was that. So that's the Archie Whiteley story. Yeah. Yeah.
Going back to your days at school, did you actually, your friends and acquaintances at school, did they really treat you that differently because of Betty, or, you know, can you?
No, they just didn't. I don't know how they would have treated me, but I don't think they did. No, it was just life as normal. I mean, when kids are teenagers going along in school, no one really cares. But it's more, you know, just, I think if my dad was, you know, the premier of, you know, or something like that, it would be different. Where my mum was the premier. But in this case, I mean, I guess some kids did in that whole thing of like other kids weren't having people come up and going, hey, what did your dad do at work? What's your dad doing at work next week? Tell me what he's doing next week and I'll give you some cigarettes, so that's different, yeah. And people that ask questions and, what's it like and that sort of thing. So I guess, yeah, but I mean, again, that theme going through this type of thing of, everything just feels normal. So it's hard to tell because it's all you know.
Yeah, I actually once squired Betty to a dinner. It was a publicity sort of thing where the cast, members of the cast were, accompanied with members of the crew. So Ray Lindsay, the floor manager, I think, went with Ali, and I went with Betty. So that meant I went and picked her up, I think, from your home, and then we went off to the dinner, and there was probably TV Week probably involved, that kind of photographs of snaps and, so forth and so on. And then we went back to your home again, and she invited me in for a couple of drinks at the end of the night. And you guys were probably in the back end of the house somewhere, but I never got to meet you.
Yeah.
Then. But Betty and I reminisced, talk about D'Lo and Daly at night and so forth and so on. That was fun.
Yeah. She always loves a bit of a reminisce. Yeah.
Before we get to the fan questions, I found there was an interesting thing that your mum wrote in the book from the outside. She said there was a scene that she was filming for Prisoner. It was the courthouse scene. And that day she actually slipped over and fell and did something to her ankle, was in a lot of pain. But she didn't want to she kept shooting the scene for this courthouse scene for that day. And there was a lot of standing. Was that your mum in general? She just pushed on no matter what, no matter how things were down, she would just keep pushing forward, keep going.
Yeah. I mean, it really was the defining part of that part of her was through work. The show must go on, and she would go to work with the worst flu. If she was sick, it didn't matter. She'd just go and you just push on through.
She said she was in a lot of pain that day in her book. She said, painful, but she still shot those scenes. And
she's incredibly, she was incredibly brave and, tough when she was called upon.
Yeah. And
then she'd go home and just kind of collapse. Into and just kind of have to recover, But yeah, she was incredibly strong person. Yeah, incredibly strong. And that strength came from within. She's incredibly resilient emotionally, incredibly supportive of others. And this is a bit off topic, but the thing that sums Mum up in so many ways was one time we were sitting in the backyard and there was this loud bang. It sounded like an explosion, like off in the distance. And most people's reaction would be, oh, wonder what that was, something like that. Or that was an annoying noise, or I wonder if that's something exciting, I wonder what that was, And Mum was like, oh, what was that? Oh, I hope nobody was hurt. So she would straight away go to other people's pain. She was incredibly compassionate. And it's not really to do with what you're talking about, what we were talking about, but it made me think of it because there's this kind of sense in her of being strong for others and pushing through those pain moments. She's putting herself before others.
Yeah.
So in that instance with the sore ankle, it's like, well, there's all these people here, showing up for work. There's all this money involved. If I go, oh, my ankle's sore and go home, we're going to have to shoot it tomorrow. All these people are going to have to go home. There's all this budgeting going to be lost. The schedule's going to get thrown out. All this stuff that becomes more important than our own little world, even if that little world is searing pain in your ankle, So yeah, it kind of sums her up, actually, standing around working with an incredibly painful ankle. Yeah.
Definitely. Now, with the fan questions, you've been kind enough to give away, which we have actually an interesting story quickly about this book that you're kindly going to give away to one of the best fan questions, which you're going to choose.
Yeah.
From the outside. Can you tell us a little story about this book that we discussed when I first contacted you?
Which one?
How it was sent back to you.
Oh yeah, ask me again. We'll cut it in.
It's all right. No, we're just going to let this flow. This is great. So,
so Mum signed a whole bunch of these, right? So here's the signature in there, right? Yep. And she'd sign them, and we'd go over there and we'd go, Mum, we need to get more signatures. So I was doing all the postage for her because she just found it too hard. We did the first run of the book, and she was posting them all off, and it was just like she was kind of like, oh, I don't want to do it anymore. It's just too hard, like, because she'd have to go and being Mum, she cared so much about the fans that as soon as an order came in, she'd have to post it within an hour, and it's kind of not feasible to do that, So she was just constantly going down to the shops and to the post office, and if she couldn't go down to the post office for whatever reason, it'd stress her out. So in the end, she went, I don't want to do it anymore. And we convinced her to do another run, and because we sold out, and I said, I'll do the postage for you. And so we had there were signed versions available and unsigned versions. And so she'd sign 100 of them, and we'd have a box with signed written on it and a box with unsigned, and off they'd go. When the pandemic hit, we couldn't get over to her. And we ran out of signed books, and we couldn't get over to her to get signed copies. And they just kind of dwindled. And eventually we ran out of signed copies. And it was after she'd passed away, we only had a few, but we were like, okay, well, we're going to just continue to sell them to the fans because that's what Mum would want. And we sold the last one, and that was it. No more signed copies. So we took it off the website. And there was a fellow in the Netherlands who bought one, and it didn't arrive. And it was a signed copy. Well, I didn't know, actually. It was just a book that hadn't arrived. And all the signed copies were completely gone. I didn't even have one, right? And so I sent him another. So it was the last one. I sent him the last signed copy. And that was the last one, gone. And then, lo and behold, it comes back. It hadn't gone through customs. So I sent him one, he got it. Like the first one I sent went and came back. And in that period, we sent him another one. This one came back, and yep, opened it up. Sure enough, signed copy. So the last signed copy on the planet, right, is here in my hands. Last unsold signed copy. And we're going to give it away.
And we really appreciate that. We really do.
Yeah, we're going to give that away. So wonderful.
Fantastic.
No, that's great. So we'll let you choose who you want to give it away to. And the first, well, it's not really a question. It's from David Dodd. He just wanted to say your mum was such a lovely person and brought joy to so many lives. God bless you, Chris.
Oh, thanks, David. It's lovely. Yeah, and you're right. It's always nice to hear those lovely messages, So yeah. Thank you.
This next one is from Mandy Kemp. And she says she loved Judy in Prisoner. Her character was just lovely. Did she ever keep in touch with friends she made on the set during her time there?
Yeah, Judy, is it? Yeah, Judy, absolutely. The friendships that were made on set were... Mandy. Oh, Mandy. Lifelong friendships are made on set. I think it's kind of like going to war. Soldiers stay friends forever. Same with actors. So yeah, lots of lifelong friendships. And sometimes she wouldn't see people for more than what she'd like. She'd like to catch up more, but just through circumstance, they might be living in different cities or just things like mum's mobility issues in the end. But I mean, her 80th birthday was a testimony to how those lifelong friendships. It was kind of like a who's who of Australian television. It was fantastic. So
Yeah.
Yes, Mandy, that she has kept up many lifelong friendships.
Fantastic. Andrew Bowers has got a bit of a long one here, but he first said you really look like her. I think you made a comment saying just less the beard.
Yeah.
Please ask Chris if his mother, Betty Bobbitt, ever thought the character of Wally, who was played by Alan Hopgood, I think, was it Wally? Ken?
Hopwood?
Yeah, if I get that wrong. Should have been more of a part of the series. Also, did she feel the ending of her part on the series was rushed? Suddenly, she just left and joined a short-term character to go and write songs. Was her contract up and they couldn't agree on new terms and they just cut her out of the series quickly? I thought she deserved a much better exit than what happened. Thank you. Thanks for your mother's fabulous work on Prisoner. She was fantastic in her role. I mean, we touched on why she left.
Yeah, we did. I mean, as far as the Wally stuff, I really have no idea what she thought about that. So I can't really answer that, unfortunately. Sorry. But as far as how she felt about being written out, she thought it was kind of a silly ending. Even though it was, as we touched on before, it was her choice to leave. She did think that the way that it happened was kind of silly, which kind of was really, wasn't it? So anyway, it's like, and what happens? Like, so she did think it was silly. Have I answered all the bits of that question?
Yeah, that's good.
I think so.
Nikki Hobbs, when you say it was a bit silly, she was going off to write lyrics with a friend, wasn't she?
Yeah.
It was a hit song that came out, and I think it got to #1 and they released it. Like, okay.
Yeah. I got one from Nikki Hobbs, who and I think Nikki actually touches closely on what Judy and Betty really had in common, which she says, I love Judy. She was my favourite. Such a kind, genuine soul.
Yeah. And that's that part that we were talking about earlier on, the kindness and the genuineness of Betty Bobbitt being brought into Judy and making that character so connectable with the viewer, So yeah, great. Good comment.
Glenn Luke said, hi, Chris. Met your mum a few times over the years. Love the night she did her book reading from her book. Learned so much more reading her book. How did people react when they found out your mum was in Prisoner? Again, which we've touched on, but I feel it's important to include these comments and questions.
Yeah. How did people react when they found out that my mum was in Prisoner? That's the question, is it?
Yeah.
Look, a lot of people were just like, oh, wow, that's great. And then they'd start asking questions like what you guys are asking. What's it like? Is it weird? Is it, so it was always a positive. It was always a positive. I can't remember one time where someone found out that mum was, in Prisoner and a negative comment or vibe came through. Yeah. There was never any sort of like, she must think she's pretty good or anything like that. It was always just like positive. Even if people didn't know the show, intimately, weren't fans, it was always just a really positive thing. And generally there were a few questions about what's it like. The main questions were, what's it like having a famous mum?
Yeah.
We've kind of touched on that. Yeah.
Now, I think that Matt has set me up with this one because this lady's name is fun. Sue Zicko, there's a lot of Z's in there, says, condolences, Chris. Your mum was such a great actress. I love Betty on Prisoner, never missed an episode.
Yeah, thanks. And it's always just, you know, I don't know, it's the condolences, just especially, you know, in the period after she passed away, and even to this day, they just keep pouring in. You know, I got a Facebook message the other day from somebody that I don't know, just saying condolences, and it's just always welcome, and always, yeah, it's just, yeah, thank you. It's like,
Bonnie Davis Kiachio said, I share her birthday and I'm also from Philadelphia, PA. How did her move from the States affect her?
The biggest thing, I mean, it affected her in a great way, because first up, because she got this incredible, insane career that's like hardly anyone has in acting, and it lasted her entire life, you know. And her move over here, she met my dad, you know. She had two sons, you know, in her language, two beautiful sons, you know. I'm not that beautiful, but Ollie is, you know. It affected her in a really good way, you know. But the downside, I guess, was that, you know, she lost out on her relationship with her brother and her parents, and her parents both died. My grandparents in their 50s, both of cancer, and she wasn't there when they passed away. She was here, and so that was really hard. So that affected her in a big way. Yeah. You know, I remember when we were in Sydney, and one of them dying, and it was, yeah, it's just like, yeah, I can remember I was really little, and it was like, Mum's really sad, you know. So yeah, in that regard, you know, it affected her, and she was hard on her leaving her little brother, because I mean, he's 9 years younger as well, something like that, nine years younger than her. So similar in me and Ollie, you know. So when she moved away, I remember she was 20, whatever, so he was only 11, you know. So she didn't have that relationship build with her brother as well. But, you know, we're in contact with my cousins in America now, and yeah, in Philly. Nice. So insane, the same birthday and growing up in Philly. Yeah. So, I like it.
I've got one from Greta Bostock. Would love to have met your mum, Chris. I'm sure your whole family were very proud of her. Loved your mum's character in Prisoner. Betty, aka Judy, will be sadly missed. Loved her so much. Like many Prisoner fans, take care, Chris, and God bless to you and the family.
Oh, thanks. It means a lot. Nice and heartfelt there. And we were, yeah, proud. You mentioned being proud of her, and we're always proud of her. I mean, actually, that's interesting, because, you know, we talk about what's it like growing up with a famous mum in Prisoner, you know, and to be honest, I was really proud. Yeah. And felt kind of special. Yeah, to be honest, I hadn't really thought about that. And that question was great, because it really just triggered that, because I actually felt special. I felt different, and I felt, you know, blessed by that. It made me, in a way, kind of, I don't know, separate. Yeah. Not in a bad way, but, you know.
Well, she actually ends this, and I found it difficult to read this. Your mum will live on in our hearts forever.
Yeah, and she will. And this is the thing, you know, like, so many people pass away and they're remembered by their loved ones, the people that knew them. And then that's that. Once everyone else is gone, then the memory's gone. Yeah. And I think striving for this mark that people make in the world, that puts them, you know, in these public places where you don't disappear and a memory will live on, you know. And I know for a fact that she's regarded as one of the great you know, people in the industry. She's regarded as one of the great contributors to Australian television and theatre, and not just for Prisoner, but for her entire career. And so her mark has been left, and it's a great legacy, you know. And I love the fact that she won't be forgotten, you know.
Yeah. That's what we felt it was important to do this tribute episode to Betty. So it's you know, create a lasting.
When you first asked me to do it, I was kind of like, huh? Okay. I never doubted that, you know, I was always happy to do it, but it was always kind of like, oh, but it kind of makes more sense now that I'm doing it. Like, you know, definitely. Especially in relation to the last comment, you know, where it's like this legacy going on, and you know, I was thinking of because one of the projects that we were going to do before she passed away was her to read the book and do an audio book, because she used to do a lot of audio books on the side for, you know, other authors, and she's really good at it. And I wanted her to do the whole book and read it as an audio book, and then have me there, and like, or maybe not even me there, but like her interjecting, like while she was reading it, she'd get to a bit, and it's like, if something triggers your mum, then just talk about it, you know, while you're reading it. I thought that was a great idea, and she was up for it. She was going to do it, but then the pandemic hit, so we couldn't do it. I was trying to work out a way to do it remotely and get the good audio quality, but I wanted to get good audio quality. And then when she passed away, I thought of the idea of perhaps reading it myself and doing the same thing, and like reading out, you know, like as I was reading, if something triggered a memory, then just talking about it a bit, and then going back to the book. And I posted that on her page, and the response was actually quite encouraging. A lot of people said that they'd like to hear it, but it's just a matter of whether I can, you know, get through it. And I'm not even sure how good an idea it is, but like, because it's not her, you know, so there's a connection there, I think. So yeah, anyway.
Martin Dugan, I hope I've got that right, I'm bad with surnames, said, hi Chris, a lot of love from the Prisoner fans for your mum. My question is, what one word perfectly sums up your beautiful mama? Hashtag until you meet again.
Loving.
Yeah,
that's the word.
Over to Ken.
Yes, I've got a problem at the moment. So can you go on with another question, Matt?
Yeah, sure. Connor Mueller said, hi, Chris. Now, Connor's a big Prisoner fan. You've probably seen him on the Facebook groups.
I have, Connor.
Loved your mum's work on Prisoner. How did Prisoner impact your life? And did your mum's, well, we discussed your mum staying in contact with cast members. And we've sort of touched on how Prisoner impacted your life as well.
Yeah, but I mean, just to kind of elaborate slightly, it only in positive ways.
Yeah,
I can't think of any negative impact that Prisoners had on my life. It's only been positive the whole way through. Yeah.
Yep.
It's been good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great. Are you right now, Ken, or do you want to?
No, you have to keep going, Matt.
No problem. Steve Gee, he's got a couple of questions here. Hey, Chris, my questions are as followed. What did Betty like most about the character Judy Bryant? And what did she dislike about the character, if anything? Obviously, the next question was about her exit, which we've touched on. And he also said, P.S. I hope you liked the Judy Bryant tribute video I made after Betty passed away last year. I'm not sure if you've seen that.
I think I have, and it was really cool.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I have. There's been a few, but I think I have seen that one.
Yeah.
And yeah, great. Thanks. It's always good to see. And because I mean, it's really great because it kind of puts everything together, and it's great for us to see it as well. So thank you. Mum liked the compassionate side of Judy and the most, and didn't like the violent side of it.
Yep.
That's that. Yeah.
Yep. Jason Burridge said, did Chris ever get to spend time on the set as a kid?
Yeah. I mean, look, I spent less time on the Prisoner set than other sets. But definitely, sometimes after school, I have to go out to the green room and be sitting in the green room, bored as anything. Oh, Mom, when are we going home? Someone couldn't remember their lines and it'd take longer, and you'd be like, oh God, but some great times, just out at, Nunawading Studios, and definitely spent time on sets. It's and backstage. A big formative part of my world. Yeah.
Fantastic. Richard Newsham, big fan of your mum's character, and he's from the UK. Just wondering, did she get more recognition from Prisoner or the brief moments she was on the Crocodile Dundee films?
Prisoner. Most people, when I tell them Mum was in Crocodile Dundee, they go, "Oh, really? Really? When? What?" And then they'll go back and watch it. Yeah. So definitely, more people from recognise it from Prisoner than Crocodile Dundee. Although she gets more residuals from Crocodile Dundee than Prisoner.
We spoke about that on Messenger. We had an interesting story about how In Excess at the time were told to invest in Crocodile Dundee.
Yeah.
It's going to be a massive flop. They wanted a tax write-off, so they said invest in that movie because it's gonna fail.
Totally. I know. How's that? And Celia, my ex-wife, her granddad invested early on in Crocodile Dundee and made a bundle. So yeah, fantastic. So she'd get a check from them every year. It was great.
Oh, yeah, great movie.
Not huge, but it's like, thank you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Keep going, Matt. I've still got a meltdown here.
That's okay. We can keep the show going on, as Betty would say. Craig Rogers Bennett said, "Hi, Chris. Firstly, I'd like to say how sorry I am to hear about the passing of your mum. She was such a great actress. My question is, does Chris know if his mum ever wanted to play another character, or does he know there is a storyline or event he thinks his mum would have loved to have happened during her time on this fantastic show?" Obviously talking about Prisoner.
Yeah, look, she didn't want to play another character. She loved Judy, especially once she got her teeth into it. She made Judy her own, and I don't think so. Yeah, no, she didn't want to play another character. I don't, well, to my knowledge, anyway. And by the way, any of these answers, they're all just my, thing. So somebody could be watching who knows, Mum, and it's like, oh no, that's not right, and that's fine. I'm just giving my honest answers to it as I can. As far as thinking of Mum wanting to have a storyline, I don't really know because I've never heard her mention it. Yep. But I would guess no, because she's not really. Even though she's a writer, so maybe she did actually, but I don't know. But I can't imagine that she would. She was more sort of like, it's the task at hand, the job, learning your lines, doing the show, and just getting on with it. Yeah. So that's someone else's.
Sorry.
That's someone else's job to do that. Thinking out story.
Dweeb, I think it's pronounced Dweeb. Chris, your mum is a legend and will be forever remembered for playing magnificently the wonderful part of Judy Bryant, a true icon. Can't wait to watch this interview. My questions to Chris are, was Betty ever asked to return to Prisoner? And what was Betty's favourite memory of her time on Prisoner?
To my knowledge, Mum wasn't ever asked to return, but I might be wrong. And as far as her favourite memory of her time on Prisoner, I expected it to have something to do with the dinner parties. Or the crew. She loved the crew. She always loved crew. I think that's why she was so successful, because she just respected the crew members and was really engaged with crew and just respected them and thought that the crew were just like the heartbeat of every show, and yeah. Didn't really answer that, but hey, come on.
Keep going, Matt.
Yeah, I'm going to ask one of your questions, Kings. I think you can't ask it at the moment. Is Cheryl Pizzicillo? I'm hoping I'm shocking this surname, so I do apologise. I was just wondering if your mum, I'm a Yankee here too, Cheryl said, ever came back to the USA? Did she have family here still? I was devastated when I learned of her passing. She was absolutely my favorite character on Prisoner, just a brilliant actress. And you did.
Yeah. So thanks, Cheryl. After she left Prisoner, and she still had the house in Clifton Hill, but she sold the house in Clifton Hill and moved back to Philadelphia for a year with my brother. And the move was meant to be forever. She was like, I want to move back home, you know. And when she moved back over there, she realized that home was Melbourne and it was a mistake. And that so she came back. And it was after that she got her Australian citizenship and became an Aussie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, she did. I can't remember what year that was, but it was in the 90s, I guess. Early 90s. My brother was quite young. I'd left home. So yeah, off she went.
Amazing.
But yeah, it was a bad idea when she came back. Yeah. Because Melbourne's so good. I mean, it's like you just like you get used to Melbourne. Like anyone that's grown up in Melbourne tends to come back at some stage.
Yeah, you can't move away from it. It's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know. Well, that was the last fan question that we have. So we'll let you go through them later and decide on a winner for that amazing book giveaway. And
yeah, great.
I just want to personally thank you for coming on, and because I know it must have been hard sometimes talking about your mum being no longer with us, but we felt it was important that we did honour her in this way and keep her memory and legacy alive. And we really thank you for coming on.
And can I just say too that having spent the last couple of hours with you, Chris, I can now see what the fans have been saying about how similar you look to your mum, without the beard, of course.
Look, our internet connection's unstable. Yeah, look, she you should see my daughter. She looks so much like mum. It's crazy. And yeah, that's that Cherokee thing coming through because mum's, you know, we've got Cherokee heritage. And so there's this real sort of Cherokee thing running through the family. Yeah, in answer to the both of you, I just really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come on here and talk about mum. And it's kind of cathartic in a lot of ways to be able to do it. And it's a bit humbling as well. It's like, oh man, you know, like, and a testament to the work that she's done, that you'd want to speak to someone like me about it, you know, where it's her work that we're talking about, you know, her heart, her personality, her strife, her striving, you know, her heartache, her triumphs, you know, her journey. And I guess we can storytell about those that we've been on a journey with. And hopefully, as you were saying before, Matt, get that story to echo out through the times, you know, and Judy will live on. And I just hope that it's more than Judy, and it's the Betty Bobbitt behind Judy that created her.
Yeah, and I'm sure it will. She's adored by so many people. I mean, I never had the chance to meet her, unfortunately, but you know, just reading all the fan comments and, you know, hearing about it and Ken's memories of her, and, you know, obviously just learning from you from the last sort of 2 hours. It's you know, she sounds like an amazing woman, and yeah.
Amazing and sorely missed.
Definitely.
Thanks so much, Chris, for sharing a little bit of time with us and with the fans.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Oh, an absolute pleasure, and again, an honour to be asked to come and chat to you guys about mum and her career. Yeah, so thank you. And I just want to say what a great show you guys have put together, and what a great thing you're doing. You know, it's really, really cool. And yeah, I hope all I have is best wishes for this show of yours. It's great. Talking Prisoner.
Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And just for those again, it was chrishillstudios.com.au.
.com.au. Yeah.
Beautiful. We're going to put a link up to that. Also, the crowdfunding page for your brother. And I think you said
and the album, the new album. I want people to listen to it.
Well, we'll put them all up. We'll put them all up.
Mum wanted people to hear it.
Yeah,
so,
definitely. Yeah, we'll put them all up, and we'll announce the winner for the book maybe later on the week on the Facebook page. That's
great. All right.
Yeah.
Good luck, everybody.
Thanks, mate.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ken.
No worries.
All the best.
See you, Chris. Bye.
Are we actually hanging up now?
Yeah, well, we'll come here anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thanks for coming on, mate. We really
Thank you.
Yeah, great job. All right. I better get back to work, but wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Talk to you soon.
I'll send you a link. I'll send you those links, and
yeah,
I'll just pick a winner.
Yeah, just go through here. Yeah.
All right, great.
And then what do we do? You've still got some books left, yeah? Unsigned ones?
Yeah, I've got unsigned ones. I'm not sure how many, probably about 100 or something.
Well, we can sell them from our website if you want. We'll work it out.
Yeah, I mean, I took Mum's website down because it was just a bit emotional. I couldn't be bothered doing it anymore. They don't sell that without promotion. They don't sell that you sell probably one a week or something like that. Yeah, I'm happy to. I mean, you take a cut. It's not.
No. We're just happy to list them on there because obviously, we're getting people coming to our site and Facebook page and things like that. So if we can sell some, we don't need none of it. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Thanks, mate. It's been amazing.
Yeah. See you soon.
Okay. See ya.